Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining what will be the most fascinating panel of the entire conference.
By far, by far.
My name is Evanne Abneri. I work at Horizon Media as the Programmatic Partnerships and Product Development person. I'm joined here by three amazing marketers, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Hello, my hungover friends. I am Amina Asim. I'm the Director of Audience Intelligence at RPA. My team works across 8-9 brands and 7 verticals. We do insights as well as activation across multiple channels.
Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Shanley. I work at Discover, the credit card. I feel like half of this room thinks that I work at Discovery, the TV network. That's much cooler. But no, I work at Discover Financial Services as a principal of brand and advertising optimization. Like the person from Chase, also has way too long title, trying to shorten it, but really working on brand marketing within our Center of Excellence team.
Hi everyone, my name is Allie Wooster. I work at Barbecue Guys. We are the outdoor living experts. If you're not familiar with us, we're thinking grills, griddles, smokers, pizza ovens, all that outdoor stuff. I am a channel manager there, so I am in charge of all of our programmatic efforts. I also do programmatic direct mail as well as affiliates.
Amazing. So we've circled back to contextual. How does it feel different this time around?
I think we're less panicked, if you want my honest opinion. I think with the cookie deprecation, personally, I know we felt a lot of pressure to find some additional tactics. I know that we've had a lot of really great speakers today talking about the different tactics available. So I think contextual is going to still play a big part, but I know that we feel a little less panicked and there's a little bit more time to kind of figure out these new strategies.
I think it's definitely having a moment. I think relevancy has become so much more important over the last couple years. And not only from an advertising standpoint, but also from a consumer standpoint. Like consumers want messaging and advertising that's relevant to them. I know Ad Age had a study that 65% of people who see ads that aren't relevant to them, they view it as a negative experience. So I think context really is kind of a new currency, and it still is having a moment.
Well, I think that it never really left. And the only difference is software, that we're doing it with a bit more with programmatic. But I think being in advertising and the consumer being at the center of it, contextual advertising is the key to engaging with the consumer. And I think it's just kind of the easiest way to be privacy safe as well, and a proven method of grabbing attention of the consumer by placing an ad where they're already searching or looking or reading and already engaged. So it's a logical kind of progression of events.
I'd like to piggyback off that a little bit. I think there's also a scientific neurological piece to contextual, which I think is really interesting. There's actually proof that neurologically a consumer is more likely to remember your brand if you are serving them an ad and during which the time that they are looking at something that is contextually relevant. So for me, if they're learning about how to smoke their meat and then I show them an ad, they're more likely to remember me than if I popped up following them around on something like a CNN or an ESPN.com. So I think neurologically it's something that will continue to be really important for us going forward.
Excellent points, everyone. I know originally we were supposed to talk about a post-cookie future, which no longer is happening in the way that we all thought it was going to. So how has Google's decision to keep cookies affected the momentum of contextual targeting? Do you think contextual targeting will continue to grow, or will reliance on cookies slow its approach?
Well, I've been saying that the main reason I wanted to come here was to make fun of what's going on with a bunch of people who understand how funny and frustrating it's been. So, haha. I think that the cookie deprecation, I think whether it happens or doesn't happen, is what it has done is that it has pushed everyone in the right direction. I think that privacy is very, very important. I think the worst thing that you want to do for your brand is to come across as creepy. So I think that the move is in the right direction, and I think that what this whole kind of like, one of the people were calling it, like, from Google. Is anyone from Google here? I'm sorry, but they were calling it the cookie apocalypse. And the kind of urgency that they created, what it has done is that it's pushed everyone forward to invest more in testing and identifying alternative options, and contextual has been a big part of it. And for us, it was the same thing. I think this last year, we really prioritized being prepared for the cookieless future. So we started investing more and more in contextual partners. And the great thing is that we saw fantastic results with some of them. So, it's all about the results. So if the cookie is not deprecated, that's fine. We'll still continue to use these contextual partners. If it's deprecated, great. So as long as we're getting the good results, which maybe we might not have tested these partners if the cookie apocalypse wasn't coming, right? So I think the move, we're going to continue moving in the same direction. We're going to continue testing and learning. And with first-party data as well, like, we've seen fantastic results. So as long as we're seeing great results, we're going to keep moving in these directions. And I think it's a positive move across the board for the industry either way.
I'll just keep talking. So I think it will continue to grow, I think, for a lot of reasons. I think we're going to start thinking about it in different ways. I was going to say in different contexts, not to use that again. But if you think about it, hot take here, digital out of home can be a contextual play. The more that we're being intentional with like our outdoor placements, it can be within the context of our user. That is contextual, right? It doesn't have to necessarily just be what people are reading online. I think also contextual is a great way to also create more thought leadership opportunities for our brands. Because native advertising can really look like, and not necessarily an ad, but a placement there for thought leadership and branding, as well as blog articles, content. And I think that that's another place that contextual will continue to really shine, is thought leadership.
We are very much so stay the course at Discover, and we view contextual as an add-on. Leveraging behavioral segments, that's something that we're not going to be moving away from. But I think contextual helps bridge that gap, especially when you're getting into relevancy, and kind of completes that consumer behavior.
So what I'm gathering is that the approach hasn't changed, even though Google's decision has.
Right.
Excellent. So as working in partnerships, I have to see a bunch of different pitches. A lot of them have similar buzzwords, sometimes in different order, sometimes in the same exact order, especially when it comes to contextual targeting. There's a lot of people who are trying to do what feels like a similar thing. How do you guys differentiate between that, and what do you look for in the contextual partners that you're working with?
I think relevancy is probably the most important thing, and how granular we can get with that relevancy, and how often that data is refreshed. Those are the big things. So when I'm looking at a contextual partner, I want to make sure that they, one, have the scale, but two, have the ability to drive that relevancy, so that we are aligning with the moments and the RTBs that make the most sense for the brand.
Yeah, kind of, taking a step back and just talking about contextual in different ways. So one is like the direct buys that we do with contextual partners. One is, working with data partners who are providing contextual targeting, and then you've also got contextual targeting built within DSPs themselves, like Google offers contextual targeting as well. So I think, speaking from an audience intelligence point of view, we've really standardized the process. I think in a lot of agencies, we talk about, using data to inform media strategy. But I think what we've done, especially over the last few years, I think audience intelligence isn't even a team, I think, in most agencies. So we've really kind of focused very hard on standardizing what we do, so that it can inform the entire media planning and investment process. And the key is basically just spending a lot of time trying to understand our audience, who they are, what their values are, what motivates them, how do they like to spend their time, what are they doing in the next 12 months of their lives, what is the most important thing to them, and of course, like, where are they consuming media? And then using that information, so my team really comes at the beginning of, like, even before, like, production happens. So we start at the beginning, we start informing, like, what's going on with how we want to, what kind of content we want to show in our ads even, versus also like who are we going to RFP for the during this process, then the media strategy, etc. So we really align all our partnerships and a lot of our content with the center being the audience, their heart, who they are, what they want to do. And to the extent that we have like slides showing like contextual alignment across all our media partnerships. So I think that's the kind of like the backbone of everything, and we're very invested in that at this point, that all our partners are, for instance, like one of our automobile campaigns were going on, and hiking is a very solid bet, especially in Southern California, etc. But so the audience's passion points are hiking or camping, so we would have a partnership with Strava or All Trails. So we're very, very focused on contextually aligning with our audience's interests. And it starts really with digging really deep into the data and understanding who they are at a very deep level.
Yeah, I think when we're looking for a contextual partner, I think we're looking for the opportunity to test and the ease to test. That's always a big winner for us. If we can test it easily and see if it works for us and they're open to letting us test, I think that's a big thing. New tech, honestly, I think we're going to continue to see more and more AI tech coming out when it comes to contextual. I've already talked to some people during this conference that are doing AI, and they're doing some scanning on images, not only content, but images as well. I think as we get more sophisticated with AI as we go forward, I think some of our contextual plays will become even more accurate and more relevant.
That's a great segue in. I think we've seen some themes of relevance. We've seen themes of how granular we can go to make sure we're really aligning with that audience, and looking for that sophistication and ease of activation, which we know and love with programmatic. What are some of the metrics that maybe under those lenses we can talk through that we look for to measure the success of these different contextual partners?
Well, metrics are generally defined. I think you guys maybe have different metrics, but our metrics are standardized across the campaigns and across channels and dependent on the funnel and the objectives of the campaign usually. So I think, because a lot of the contextual kind of targeting in particular is, we're pushing on it and it's new. So we do want to measure it against our other tactics and how it performs against those, so that we can measure its effectivity. So it's generally the same ones as the others, for us at least as of now.
Ours are pretty consistent with the larger brand campaign. The campaigns that I work on specifically are all upper funnel focused. So we'll look at things like time spent with content. We'll look at things like CPM, and that's a reason why we've shifted more into contextual, is the cost benefit. We recognize when it makes sense to overlay and pay for the extra data and when it doesn't. And with contextual, typically it's coming in more efficiently, so we're putting a little bit more investment in that.
I'm a big proponent of aligning your KPIs with the goal of your campaign. For us, obviously, we're e-commerce, so we live and die by our revenue and our ROAS, but that's not everything when we're looking at the funnel. So depending on where I'm placing the contextual piece, so I think with, we can do contextual even at the lower funnel if we're asking for a purchase, if we're using a call to action. We can use it mid-funnel, like I said, thought leadership. Let's put a native piece in there. Let's share some content that's relevant to them. And then it definitely can be great for awareness, and that can be on multiple levels. We're looking display, video, even CTV is going to be starting to have some contextual plays, I know. So I really try to look at that. What I've also seen with contextual is just really good conversion rates comparatively to some of my other plays. Maybe not as good when it comes to click-through rates. But again, I think that's because contextually they're involved with that content. They might see the ad. And so I'm not seeing as many direct clicks, but I'm seeing some good conversion down the line.
I really appreciate that point of view. I feel when I first came into the industry, we talked about contextual. There was a specific place for it within the funnel, and there are specific KPIs we looked at with that. And while your client may have specific KPIs that are the ones that make sense to them, it's going into that sophistication as we advance contextual, with whether that's AI or format or creative itself, that will allow us to put it in different places and let it shine in other areas. Next thing I want to get into is, even with cookies still in play, privacy concerns are pushing the industry towards more privacy-friendly solutions. How can companies leverage contextual targeting to enhance privacy while still achieving their advertising goals?
Contextual targeting is my best friend with compliance. Trying to submit some sort of very detailed audience into compliance does not get a good response most of the time. So contextual allows us to kind of use those workarounds, especially around things like, protected classes. We absolutely are never going to target, those classes, but we're able to leverage and understand what content makes the most sense. And from our end, what is the content that aligns with the messaging that Discover is pushing out? What is the content that aligns with the different reasons to believe and why someone may get a credit card? We view that getting a credit card is not a linear process. Everyone needs a credit card. When you're going to get a credit card is completely different from one person to the next. Rashad Tapakawala, who's amazing, he had a quote that said that consumers are very emotional, and because of that, they're not always rational. So we kind of take that to heart, and we understand that it's not that linear progression, and we need to make sure that we are aligning with the relevant content and understanding that the time and place when someone's going to get a credit card is going to be entirely different from one person to the next, but staying true to the things that make Discover unique, things like customer rewards, 5% cash back, and making sure we're using that with our messaging, but also the content that we're aligning with.
Well, for us, contextual is, I would say, one of the kind of strategies that we are implementing. I think we saw in the post-cookie or cookies never going away panel that happened right before this with Den. So there's like a bunch of different types of strategies that you have to employ. In this case, I agree with like any kind of financial clients. We have real estate clients, so we've got the Fair Housing Act come up, and we're kind of like trying to figure out what can we do with this. We're leaning more into contextual segments for that. We have a government-run, government client, so we target people differently in that case as well. There's a lot of restrictions, and in that case, contextual comes really handy. But I think contextual for us is one of the plays that we are doing. I think there's a lot of investment on our end in first-party data, and we really guide our clients on what to do with their first-party data, as well as clean rooms and testing alternative IDs. And we've seen pretty great successes with these techniques as well. First-party data has been fantastic. I love it. I want to use it all the time. Especially if you apply like lookalike modeling or optimization to it. We've seen like first-party data like drive 60 to 90% of the traffic in a particular campaign, and then you can utilize it across so many channels. So I think contextual should be part of the package. I don't know if it'll ever be the only thing, but I think it's definitely a nifty little thing that we've got going on. But yeah, I think it has to be like a bag full of like different types of strategies that we're implementing to be more and more privacy friendly and to drive better results for the clients.
Yeah, I think with privacy, it's going to be different, I think, with different generations. Something I've been thinking about a lot is, just like you mentioned, was that a lot of our consumers are looking for those personalized ads. And I'm thinking that that's going to be more and more relevant when it comes to later generations that are digitally native, that are educated about how their data is being used in the space. So I have a feeling that we're going to see some shifts based on, who we're trying to target as a brand or a company. And maybe we get a little bit creepier when it comes to Gen Z because that's what they're looking for. And then some of the other, generations that are not as familiar with how this stuff works, we need to make sure that we're checking in with that privacy and meeting them where they need to be met. So I think that's going to be something that we're really going to need to look into as we move forward, is how are generations educated on this and what are they looking for from us?
I think that's a really great point. It makes me think back to some of the earlier presentations today where we've, in this panel, talked a lot about the right audience, the interest, but when it comes to the younger generations, Gen Z specifically, and even I think some of the other formats, we talked about digital out of home earlier today, it's also the creative as well, and making sure that the full package of right time, right place, right message is sitting well with the right person.
Yeah, we're definitely investing a lot in personalization. It just goes back to, the 3-second, 3-second attention span. Like if you are not like showing the person what they're looking for, or like even like mildly interested in, you're gonna not grab their attention, you're going to have lower conversion. So we are investing pretty heavily in DCO and personalization across the board. And again, it ties back very deeply with your audience insights, working very closely with your creative teams in order to figure out like what is the best way to reach which audience. And we use affinities quite a bit in trying to figure out like how to grab that person's attention. But yeah, I think personalization is the future in many ways. I don't know if it's going back to Google and making fun of Google, but like, so recently they were, I think kind of like they had this email go out, which was talking about, how they are going to build the opt-out model. They're going to introduce the opt-out model, and it was a Google Play kind of email coming to me, and it was all like personalization, personalization, personalization. So they're definitely also picking up that word to define how they're just talking about opting in or opting out of the consumer. So I think personalization is the new hot word in this particular industry, and I think we should be moving towards it, because how else are we gonna grab everyone's attention?
Among all of these innovations, how are you seeing them compare to the cookie-based solutions that you've been traditionally using?
I'm excited. I think cookies are so old, as we know. I think as scary as it was with Google deprecating the cookie, I think it pushed us to be more innovative. I mean, we're already such an innovative industry. How can we get more innovative where we are considering the user at hand, considering their requirements, considering where they're needing to be met? I think it's really exciting that, we have exciting things to come. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Oh, and I think, Allie, you hit on it earlier on the consumer receptive. You have to tiptoe that line of not being intrusive. And I think with cookie-based targeting, a lot of the times it's intrusive. Have I run first-party campaigns with a frequency out of whack? Absolutely, I think we all have. But I think with contextual targeting, it is that ability to make sure that you're showing up and aligning with the content that they are actively looking out for. And then because of that, you're going to be more receptive. So I think from like an efficiency standpoint, we are seeing it become a little bit more efficient. It isn't driving the click volume like Allie mentioned as well, but I think it really helps build that brand affinity, which as an upper funnel marketer, that really is the most important.
Well, at RPA, we are very invested in testing and learning, and we've been doing test and learns across all of our accounts since I think 2020, I would say, and we've seen some fantastic results, and we've actually shifted our entire kind of like targeting strategies toward non-cookie based or alternative ID solutions. An example of this would be one of our clients in the furniture industry. We did a cookie ID versus I'll just say it, ramp ID test. And we saw 48% higher action rate, and we saw 86% lower cost per action. And we saw that at like a national display level. And so we've been doing testing like that across the board, across different clients. Sometimes it does not perform well. Sometimes cookie-less solutions do not scale. So that's a whole other conversations. But like we've had some great results, and wherever we've had great results, we have shifted, kind of applied it across our campaigns and made it a standardized process that we use. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't scale, but we test and learn continuously, and we've seen some great results.
I completely empathize with that. I feel the first cookieless solution I tried back in 2019, 2020, when we first started having to, the performance was extremely alarming to everyone, but it kind of came with the partnership we had to develop with that specific partner as well as others in the space to give them the feedback, give them the results to say this is what we need to get to, so you figure out how to get there together. And then to wrap it up, I'm going to blend my last two together. Based off of everything you've learned, what do you think the key to contextual is?
Relevancy. And we view relevancy as there's a financial need state and a human need state. And especially when we're talking about the human need state, relevancy is of paramount importance. So making sure that if someone's getting a credit card because they're sending their kid to college, if they're getting a credit card because they're getting married, because we can't target them from an audience standpoint, making sure that we're aligning with that content, and then making sure that it's scalable. And I think, as the performance shows, as things perform better, that scale is going to grow. So, it's started off with scale a little bit lower, but I think we're continuing to see that ramp up a little bit more, but relevancy and scale.
I think obviously relevancy is such an important piece with contextual, so I definitely agree. I think there's so many pieces of this. I think that contextual can fit at any part of your funnel, so don't discount it. I think contextual is essential for brand voice because you want to be there when someone's looking for an answer in a piece of content that's relevant to your brand, and you want to try to add them, provide them with some value. Like maybe the ad or the native ad, like I said, is a piece of content. So I think, like you said, relevancy is going to be key, and then just right place, right time. How do we support our customer and be valuable for them?
Yeah, I'm biased. I'll say audience. Like you gotta understand your audience really, really well when making any kinds of investment decisions, and I think that's the key.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was awesome. So let's first give them a big round of applause. And do we have any questions for them? Of course you do, Corey.
I'm sorry, I like to ask questions. Sorry. And Kevin, by the way, I just texted Rashad and told him you were saying nice things about him because I think if someone's not in the room but someone says nice things about them, they should know.
Right. He's got great codes.
So here's my question. It hasn't been brought up yet, but with the move to more contextual targeting again, do you think this has a better impact on the walled gardens or the open web again? Because obviously the walled gardens still have the majority of the traffic being driven through and to them, but the open web is where a lot of the contextual sites happen. They're just smaller. Do you think that this benefits one side over the other going forward?
Sorry, walled gardens versus
the open web. So think about like Facebook and Google and, to some extent even Amazon versus the rest of the entire open web.
I think with AI, the floor is wide open. I think that you could use AI to scan content. I think the benefit of the walled gardens is their amount of data, but I think with contextual, I think the field becomes open to a lot of other partners because they can gather that amount of information much faster to place ads. So I think actually it's taking maybe the advantage away in one way, contextual is, because the whole open web is open, can be your data source if you're a contextual company and using generative AI actively, my opinion.
I'd agree. I think it's going to benefit the open web the most, which I think is a good thing. Scale.
They could use it. They could use the help.
Sorry, what did you say?
So they could use the help.
Yeah. Publishers, right?
Any other questions? All right, guys. You guys were awesome. Another big round of applause for our panel. Thank you.